At some point, playing gritty and scrappy basketball crosses the line to dirty playing, and you best believe there are many players known for playing in a way that ruffles some feathers. But it never bothered some players, and they actually thrived off it, like Bill Laimbeer, an integral part of that bad boys Pistons side. Laimbeer definitely had a way of getting under the skin of the opposition, and he did it effortlessly, from taking cheap shots and trash-talking the opposition to playing aggressively without any fear of flopping. But the truth is, he loved doing that. On one occasion, Laimbeer revealed that basketball is a mental game, and he likes throwing people off their game, because ultimately, all he wants is to win. Well, I respect the honesty, but I'm not sure if the opposition did. Then again, it was just the way that the Pistons team liked to play, much like his teammate, Dennis Rodman. Now, Rodman is known as one of the greatest, if not the greatest rebounder the NBA has ever known, but that didn't mean he went about his business in a clean manner. To be honest, few Piston players did in the late 80s or the early 90s. It was their formula for success, and it worked, so who cares? Rodman certainly didn't. He also didn't mind getting his hands dirty to win the game. He'd get into challenges and would attack the glass with recklessness and without any fear of contact. But the most underrated part was the mind games. Dennis the Menace would get into the heads of the opposition through effortless taunting, very similar to another excellent rebounder of the NBA. Yep, I'm talking about Reggie Evans. Known mostly for his tenacity and rebounding, it was not a good idea to get on the wrong side of Reggie Evans. He had a long stay in the league, spanning roughly 13 years, and he brought a physical edge with him to all 7 franchises that he played for. Evans wouldn't mind taking things a little too far just to build his image of someone you wouldn't want to cross. And it worked too. Ask Chris Kaman, who unfortunately fell to the receiving end of some of Evans' handsy moments. But at least Evans was open about his physical play, unlike a certain Bruce Bowen, who went about his business in a super discreet manner. If you write Bruce Bowen into the Google search bar, you're bound to come across images of Bowen acting like he doesn't know why the foul's been called. And the expression is so genuine that you might get fooled too. But I'm on hand to tell you that you shouldn't buy into it. He was as dirty as they come. Kyrie Irving might be known for breaking ankles, but he does it in a way that's allowed. Bowen would just stick his foot under the shooters when they'd be in the middle of a jump shot. Cruel, but hey, you asked for the video. And let's take it to the next level with the next entry on the list, Kevin Garnett. Many believe that Kevin Garnett was an 80s player stuck in the 2000s. I believe they're right. He could do it all, but his aggression, trash talk, and general nature on the court was too bad. Simply put, the man was mean. From slapping opponents in the testicles when they went up for jump shots, to pushing people around and trash talk that even a sailor would think twice about. It worked too. After all, he won the MVP, a ring too, and did it all while being a menace to deal with. You'd love a player like that on your team, not so much as an opponent. Very similar to this next player, Meta World Peace. When you talk about world peace, you've got to understand that there aren't many dirtier players than him. He could be at the top of this list and you'd still be okay with the ranking. As crafty as he was a defender, World Peace knew how to get away without getting caught. That distinction between dirty, cheap, and intense doesn't matter when you're talking about this fella. In fact, if I remember correctly, he was suspended more than a dozen times during his NBA career for taking cheap shots. That elbow on James Harden was just one of the dirty moments from his career. I'd say his career highlights would require censoring, but he hasn't got a lot on John Stockton when it comes to being dirty. Oh yeah, John Stockton was bad. Don't get me wrong, I love Stockton. Brilliant player, even better at guarding the perimeter, but the man stank. Yeah, he was as dirty as they come. The most bothersome and annoying player, possibly in the history of the NBA. You think Rajon Rondo is bad? Or are you more of a modern-day fan? Do you think Pat Bev is bad? Chris Paul? Nah, they're just learning from what Stockton had already mastered. He was so good at getting away with fouls that he'd often come out worse and claim that he was fouled. But the game's the game. Look at his stats. Stockton gathered up a monster of 3,265 steals during his time in the NBA. No one else comes close. Jason Kidd is second with more than 1,000 steals less. But you've got to have some respect for the name of the next person, right? After all, I am talking about Rick Mahorn. Do you know how they talk about the Pistons of the late 80s being the bad boys? Well, I know that they really lived up to that name, but the fella who led them and was the baddest of the bunch was none other than Rick Mahorn. He lacked in scoring ability, but his physicality was the most crucial element of that team. Mahorn wasn't really an athletic player by any stretch of the imagination, but he'd fight for the ball and he'd get it too. That was just how he played, you know? And he just has to be on this list, very much like Karl Malone. Talking about dirty players, you can't help but mention Karl Malone. What he ended up doing after his retirement was, well, completely inexcusable, but he wasn't much different on the court either. He may be a Hall of Famer, and he definitely knew how to deliver buckets. Malone was the mailman, as many know him, but he also delivered elbows. The most vicious one in NBA history was also delivered by him when he crushed Isaiah Thomas. It was completely intentional, no matter what anyone says, and it's definitely one of the dirtiest plays ever, if not the outright dirtiest. But a man known for dirty plays was the Oak Tree. Yeah, Charles Oakley, probably the toughest player to play in the NBA, and that nickname was very fitting. There aren't things tougher than an oak tree, now are there? You knew what you'd get into when you came up against Oakley, and it would always be super physical. And there's a great chance that you won't come out better when you've entered a physical war with him. For 19 years, he bullied opponents on the court, and he wasn't afraid to make a forceful foul, and will beat you up too, if you had much to say about it. Sir Charles knows a thing or two about Oakley. In fact, once Oakley was judged for a flagrant, and he pointed out that this isn't basketball anymore. But I put him at the very top purely because he'd feel disgusted otherwise. Not that he hasn't earned it. Which players surprised you the most? Let us know down below in the comments. See you in the next video.
Offensive talent. Tough fall-away shot, it's good!
A roll, the bat, and the ability to create to get a clean look.
The Cavalier offense the last couple of games as Kyrie Irving nailed job keeping them in front. Actor, a spectacular offensive whip. Just 3 for 12 to start. Irving shake. Allow me, now you don't. Knocks down the ball. Here comes Irving. Puts up the shot. It's good. 4 remaining. And the Warriors standing ovation from this crowd. He has a career.
To be aggressive, leave my guys, and leave it on.
Which way did he go? Against a premier defender.
I wouldn't want to defend him, that's for sure. Eyes from the crowd. Manages to get handling. Layup is good. Oh, what a... His handle has gotten better. Taking out his do-it-yourself kit. Off could be closing time. Long move. Once I get ahead, now I'm coming. Great dexterity by... Gets around him.